Welcome to the Missouri Secretary of State's office. I'm Rachel Dunn. I'm Communications Director here. And I'm here with Secretary of State Denny Hoskins. You're the 41st Secretary of State, and welcome to your own podcast. How are you, sir?
Yeah, it's great to be here. I'm excited about having a podcast.
Me too. We've got a great new studio here in the
That's
office.
right.
It's beautiful. We've got some fancy equipment, so it's going to be great for, screeching eagles and explosions.
Yes.
But first thing up, we need a title for this podcast. So if you have any good ideas, like we've thought about Behind the Seal, but give us your ideas if you've got one. But let's get to know the Secretary a little bit today.
Yes.
So how are you feeling? You're past 100 days. You've done a lot. You've done so much.
It has been it's been a very fast 100 days, but it seems like it's been a lot longer than that. But yeah, we've had a lot of big wins and a lot of great things that we're doing here in the Secretary of State's office, beginning with election integrity. I mean, that's when people think about the Secretary of State's office. I mean, we have a lot of different divisions, but most people know that I certify elections in the state. And so, on the campaign trail, I promised that I would audit the voter rolls. And that's one of the things that I'm proud to say that we've done. So since January 13th, we've been working with local election authorities and our county clerks, and we've taken off over 150,000 ineligible voters off the voter rolls here in the state of Missouri, including 18,000 deceased voters and 1,700 felons that aren't supposed to be on the voter rolls.
Well, let's get into that because, as your communications director, I know that social media is going to light up.
Right.
Because that sounds crazy.
Yes.
Sounds crazy. So this has to happen every 4 years. Every 4 years, the local election authorities go through and do this. But
Yes. So, one in state statute, I believe it says routinely. They must routinely audit the voter rolls and clean those up. There's no real definition of routinely. And so one of the things is if a Missouri voter hasn't voted in the last 4 years, the last two federal elections, they can be sent a letter. If there's no response to that letter, then they can be taken off the voter rolls. Well, obviously, we had record voter turnout in the 2020 election as well as the 2024 election. And so if you did not vote in the 2020 election, 2022 election, or 2024 election, that probably means you may have moved out of state, or you were deceased, or unfortunately, I guess you may have been incarcerated. And so therefore, you aren't eligible to vote here in the state of Missouri.
I've seen you brought on Nick Lestrada as
Yes.
Director of Election Integrity, a former county clerk, some
That's
great
right.
experience there. I've seen him and Chrissy Peters, the
Yes.
Director of Elections, just every week they're connecting with your local election authorities. You've got 116 of them.
That's right.
And you've been out in the field too.
Yes.
You visited many counties and
That's
you've
right.
had some visitors here too. What
That's
is the
right.
vibe you're getting from your local clerks?
I think the vibe is, they're very concerned about elections too, and they want to make sure that Missourians feel that their vote counts and that only eligible voters vote here in the state of Missouri. And so, when I've been out on some trips to Callaway County, Boone County, Montauk County, as well as brought in some county clerks here, we had several county clerks that came here for, I believe, is the Mid-Missouri County Clerk Association meeting. I know that currently this week is the County Clerks Association meeting for all county clerks and local election authorities. And so I'll be heading up to their conference in a couple of days and visiting with them. But I think the vibe has been pretty good. We have had a few election complaints that we're working on. But I think overall the vibe has been pretty good, and they appreciate the added value that Nick Lestrada has brought to them as far as helping clean up their voter rolls. We're going to be working on some training things because a lot of the county clerks are new. They may be, I think they said maybe 1/3 of the county clerks are still within their first 4-year term.
Wow.
Yes. And so they're learning, they're training on the job. They're trying to figure out exactly what they should and should not be doing. And, so I told them that, hey, we'll help provide some training. We want to be a resource for our county clerks to make sure that people believe that their elections are safe and secure here in the state.
Those are absolutely very diligent positions.
Yes.
It's been cool seeing them just truly appreciate the support.
Right.
Because you're not here to micromanage
No.
at all, which
No,
is
not
something
at all.
you're a CPA.
That's right.
I think I don't know if Missouri's ever had an accountant as a Secretary of State before, but I think it's a good thing. We see every election cycle
Right.
we got to run government like a business. There's a few
yeah.
things government can learn.
That's right.
What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. So, people have said, hey, what did you bring from your CPA, Certified Public Accountant background? And as an auditor, one of the things when I went in to audit a company, I had to become an expert in that particular company in a matter of, snap of a finger, matter of 2 weeks. I had to, and had to become an expert on that company to audit their books. And that's one of the things with so many different divisions here. We've got about 6 or 7 kind of forward-facing divisions. I think about 12 divisions overall. And so coming into this office, I had to hit the ground running and had to really become an expert on that particular side of being the Secretary of State, because we talk about elections, but there's also business services, there's securities, there's state libraries, state archives, administrative rules, and so a lot of different things. Some of them intersect and interconnect, but others are completely different. I mean, securities is very much different than elections. State archives is very much different than administrative rules, and so that's one of the things. Being a certified public accountant and being an auditor, I utilized my background in that to come in and try to just hit the ground running and learn as much as I can as fast as possible.
One of the biggest things I think I've learned since you brought me on, I came in January with you, and I'm loving being on the agency side.
Yes.
But the Secretary of State's office is truly an administrative, facilitative agency. There's no one in the state that isn't touched by some service every single day.
Exactly.
And that's wild.
Yeah, it is wild because this year being my first year, I tried to stay in my lane, right? Okay, not get outside what the Secretary of State does, but when I deal with businesses as far as business services, business filings, and if you create a business or dissolve a business, when I deal with elections, the state library, archives, administrative rules, so all these state agencies file different rules and regulations that we take a look at, as well as elections. There's not much that the Secretary of State's office doesn't touch, and so I quickly found that my lane was pretty wide, and I had to become an expert and hire good people in order to manage those agencies.
Yeah, and it's cool here. It's really cool vibes. It's crazy. It is crazy to watch. And we learn something every day.
That's right.
Which is great. That's how you know it's a good place to work.
Yes.
We don't get bored.
Not at all.
Well, let's look at the questions from, myself.
Yes.
Myself. So we talked about election integrity.
That's right.
And we talked about the voter rolls. Now, the voter rolls, the cleanup is a really big deal because, the percentage of change is substantial. It's been a big cleanup. So other than we've got the cleanup, what else has been going on the election integrity front?
Well, so one of the main reasons we wanted to do the audit of the voter rolls is so we can take our voter rolls and compare it to the SAVE database, the database of non-citizens here in the United States. And so we have access to that database now. However, we have our IT team here in the Secretary of State's office, thankfully, and so they're working in order to try and cross connect the names on the SAVE database of non-citizens that should not be voting with our voter registration system. So that's one of the things we're working on. And then memorandum of understandings with some of the surrounding states to see, a lot of people, if you live on the west side of the state, a lot of people move back and forth between Kansas and Missouri on the and across the state line. The same thing in St. Louis. And so we're working with some of our neighboring states and also the state of Florida, because we do have some snowbirds that like to go down to Florida during the wintertime. So we can compare the voter registration and maybe somebody, move from Missouri to Kansas or Kansas to Missouri. Likewise in Illinois or Arkansas, all those bordering states, Iowa, and to make sure that, I moved a few times. I will tell you that the last thing I thought about when I was moving is, hey, I need to call the county clerk where I moved from and have them take me off the voter rolls.
Right? You just think it's done.
Right. You just think it's done. And you've got there's a whole host of other things. You're trying to get utilities turned on. You're trying to get unpacked. That's probably the last thing that you're thinking about. And so we're working on some memorandum of understandings with other Secretary of States in order so we can compare those voter rolls to make sure, hey, if somebody's moved, let's take them off this one. I know St. Louis City came out. They had this, what they called I think, gateway card or something like that was going to be a photo ID that supposedly they could use for different governmental services inside St. Louis City. Well, we pushed back against that as far as them being able to utilize that as a photo ID. Here in the state of Missouri, you have to have a photo ID to vote. Unfortunately, the gateway card, which you didn't have to be a registered voter to get, you didn't have to be a U.S. citizen to get. We could foresee, some things that were brewing where people might try and use their gateway card in order to register to vote. And we pushed hard back against that. You cannot use your St. Louis City gateway card in order to for a photo ID to vote. And then Trump issued an election executive order. And so my team, what they did is they went through to see exactly what we already had in Missouri state law. Like Trump called for paper ballots. Well, paper ballots are already state law here in the state of Missouri. And so, yes, we put the check mark on that one. We already do that. Then some of the things that would require legislative action, like requiring proof of citizenship to vote in Missouri elections. So that's something I know they're working that on a federal side, which would apply to federal elections, like for presidents, U.S. Senate, U.S. Congress. But in order to require proof of citizenship for our local elections, like city council or state rep or things like that, we would have to change that state law here in the state of Missouri. So legislative fixes. And then there were some other things that I can probably do with the issuance of an executive order. So we've been working on that. Most certainly we want to comply as much as possible with Trump's executive order and been working with our federal counterparts to say, hey, this is what we already do in Missouri state law. Would take legislative action, and this might be able to be accomplished by emergency rule.
You were talking about staying in your lane earlier, and one of the big lessons I've learned is like your lane is very clearly defined from
Yes.
rule all the way up to executive order, all the way up to
It
the
is.
Constitution, whether it's election laws, whether it's business services, what we can and cannot notify people, how we
Right.
spend money. Very well defined. But every day, I think I'm so grateful to be here in the year 2025
Mhm.
when we have the technology to really implement these common sense priorities you have,
Yes.
whether it's cleaning up the voter rolls, whether it's making business services more efficient.
Right.
It's a good time to be here.
It is.
It is a good time to be here.
I agree.
So with your election integrity
Yes.
push, how are you balancing that need with ensuring voter accessibility? You've talked about how the gateway card, and of course, like you could cast a provisional ballot,
Yes.
and that's just fine. It's just not valid ID.
That's right.
How do you balance that need? Whenever I monitor the chatter,
Right.
I see people on each side with concerns, and it just creates an opportunity to educate on our front.
Yeah. So, it is a requirement to show a photo ID here in the state of Missouri. And there's certain things that are proof of a photo ID. Obviously, the biggest one is a driver's license. I mean, you can't go almost anywhere without having a photo ID. I mean, you go to the bank to cash a check, they ask for a photo ID. Sometimes even when you pay by check or have a credit card at a business, sometimes they might ask you for a photo ID. You sign up for a cable TV service, they come to your home, they ask for a photo ID. I mean, there's not much that you can't do without a photo ID. And so when I was in the legislature and supported this election integrity measure, we made there was a requirement, to have a photo ID. And we said, okay, well, what if you can't afford a photo ID or you don't have a driver's license? And so we said, okay, we'll give you one for free. And so right now it's just been more of a educational opportunity for voters and Missourians to say, okay, if, that's what we're working on now, is trying to help educate the public. Obviously, this November 2024 election and August 2024 election. Then we've also had the April 2025 election with the municipal election. I mean, you had to have a photo ID when you went in there. And so I think people are starting to realize that. And you mentioned provisional ballots. Obviously that's, if you don't have a photo ID, you can file a provisional ballot. We've had that done in some of our local election authorities where somebody didn't bring their ID, filed a provisional ballot, then they came back and brought their actual photo ID to prove who they were.
I love that you brought up about the free IDs. I remember there were hours and hours of holdup on the legislative floors of both chambers over the
Yes.
voter ID priority of the legislature.
That's right.
Like so much. And this office has given out less than 60 of those.
Yes.
And that was just an interesting metric, just seeing the guts of how government works. And like that service is available to people.
That service
and that's
is
good. And it'll be
That's
good
right.
to remember that context as we move forward
That's
with
right.
additional changes as those
Exactly.
come down through the pipe too.
Exactly.
So let's talk about you a little bit.
Yes.
And it's kind of fun. Like, I think the most fun part of this is like showcasing you, Denny, the
Right.
person.
Right.
What'd you do this weekend?
So yeah, this weekend, well, I know where you're going with this. This weekend I did a duathlon. And so a lot of people like, hey, what's a duathlon? That's biking and running. And so no duathlon's quite the same. We did, my wife and I, we made a New Year's resolution last year, in 2024, and we made it again this year, that we would run a 5K road race or do a duathlon once a month. And so last year we did a duathlon every month, so 12 for 12. So far this year, we're 5 for 12. We've done 5 so far through the month of May. And so this past weekend, most of the time duathlons are combined with triathlons. A triathlon is swim, bike, run. A duathlon is usually run, bike, run. Sometimes it's just bike run, but did the Kansas City duathlon. And so we ran 1.5 miles, biked 12 miles, and then ran 3 miles. And yes, that was yesterday morning in Long.
Oh, it was just yesterday.
Just yesterday. So usually we had to get up at the crack of dawn and make it up there. But so I we did very well. I think I finished second in my age group. But I definitely paid the price the rest of yesterday because I was sore. I'm still a little bit sore today. But so did that yesterday. And I think there's one coming up in Jeff City. Actually, it's called the Prison Break duathlon on maybe
That's a vibe.
June 8th or 9th, whatever that Sunday is. And so I think that's the next one that we'll be doing right here in the capital city.
Now, did I see that your wife, Michelle, who is lovely, if you have not met her, she is just a hoot. She placed first.
She did. She placed first in her age group. And so, very proud of her. She jokingly says, because I always take pictures of her, and she's like, well, the only reason there's pictures of Michelle and not Denny is because Denny finishes before Michelle and could go take pictures. And so she's like, well, one of these I won't run and I'll just take pictures of you. I said, no, you don't need to do that. So she always, by the pictures taken, you can tell that she's having a lot more fun than I am. I have a more serious look on my face when I'm in the middle of the bike ride or on some run, and then I get done and taking pictures of her, and she's running around with her thumbs up and smiling and things like that. So she always looks like she's having a lot more fun than I am.
She is always having a lot more fun.
She is.
But
she's
just generally. Well, cool. Thank you so much for taking some time. You are a very busy man.
Yes.
Do you feel busier as a statewide official than you did as a legislator?
I do. It's a different kind of busy, though. I mean, obviously, the legislature's in 5 months out of the year. Yeah, that doesn't mean they only work 5 months. They're back with their constituents and going to meetings. And if you're a state rep, you're launching run for re-election already, since their term's only 2 years. As a statewide elected official, I mean, we're year round. And so the vast majority of the time, I spend 3 to 4 days here in Jefferson City, and then usually 1 to 2 to 3 days either back in Warrensburg or traveling across the state, going to public libraries, going to county clerk's offices, meeting with businesses and things like that. So there's never a loss of anything to do. There's always something to do and keeping very busy. That's for sure.
It's a beautiful state to explore.
It is. I enjoy Missouri. Missouri's a great state, and there's a lot of differences between northern Missouri, where a lot of things are more flat till you get down the Boot Hill. It's a lot more hilly down there, and but I met so many good folks all across the state.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time. I'm excited to do more of this.
Yes.
I love the
Likewise.
part of the job that's just educating people.
Right.
That is very cool. And of course, we need some names for our podcast.
We do. We've talked about something to do with the red jacket. If that could be incorporated into some sort of podcast, because for better or for worse, I'm known for wearing my red jacket.
You're going to own it.
I'm going to own it. Yes, I'm going to own it. We've talked about something. We have a suggestion box here. We call it Straight to the Secretary, where employees of the Secretary of State's office have got a red box, and they can I'm the only one with the key, and they can put in ideas and suggestions on how to make the Secretary of State's office a better place, not only to work, but a better place to serve Missourians and new ways of doing things. So we talked about something like maybe straight from the Secretary, but yeah, I'm excited about this podcast. I'm excited about showing Missourians. I mean, there's so much we didn't talk about. I mentioned all those other divisions. Excited about, showing more Missourians what exactly we do here in the Secretary of State's office and how we can be a valuable resource.
Thank you so much for listening to the Secretary's podcast. We can't wait to tell you what it's going to be called next time whenever we delve into the other divisions, the other projects, the other programs here at the office. Thank you so much.